Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the Average Weekly Wage Subcommittee. This is our last scheduled meeting, and want to kick it off with just a thank you to everyone for the collaboration that we've seen amongst this group. Really appreciated all of the stakeholders being willing to come together and have some productive conversations and discussions. And I don't want to speak for Scott, but we did chat earlier, and we're both really happy with the collaboration that we saw through this group. So just want to begin with that. Thank you for that. Terry, I'm going to kick it back to you to get us going on the agenda.
Okay, well, let's see. We have the proposal and we have some data. Would you like to have the DCBS data first, co-chairs?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, Raphael, are you ready? There he is. Great. Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Co-Chair Glenn. My name is Rafael Robles from DCBS Research. And there it is. Thank you for pulling this up. So I was asked to run one more scenario similar to the ones presented at the last meeting. This one was, I believe, a collaborative scenario proposal option that was set by SG and AFSCME. So this one differs slightly from proposal option 2A. This proposal is 75% of all wages below 75% of the state average weekly wage. So any wages below 1,062.8 per week, a worker would be paid out at 75%. For all wages above that point, they would be paid out at 65%. So this is a tiered system, but it's a progressive tiered system, so there's no cliff there. We have the same kind of scenarios here, the same example workers from minimum wage workers across Oregon, Portland Metro minimum wage, and then some workers making varying amounts increasing, including the 2025 state average weekly wage, a worker making $83,000 a year, or about $1,600 a week. And then there's also an inclusion for a calculated maximum worker at the very bottom there. So that is the worker that would top out the benefit, which is 133% of the state average weekly wage. As previous, we have examples for a single worker or a married worker with 2 children, as that changes their tax rates. And we can just kind of go into it here. So for the first worker 1, 2, Portland Metro minimum, and worker 3, there's no difference from proposal option 2A. They're making 75% of their full weekly wage. So they are making $411 for worker 1, $420 in the benefit, $489 for the Portland Metro minimum, and $540 for the worker number 3. Sorry, there's a lot of numbers. So no big changes, but this is a large increase from the current rate. Instead of 66.67, 75%. So that averages, it's about 12.49% more per week for any worker making less than that cutoff point. So this will increase their weekly benefit by up to $88 per week. For a full-time worker, it would be somewhere between 47 and 88, depending on their pay. So a pretty good chunk per week there. If they are making over 75% of the weekly wage, their pay will still increase by somewhere between $88 per week down to $60 per week, depending on their income. And it's actually a decreasing amount as their income goes up, because that second tier is 65% rather than 66.67. But it's still somewhere between $60 and $80 per week more than they would get with the current rates. Just for a baseline there, so that state average weekly worker is receiving about $82 more per week than at the current rate. We see here the differences between their their TTD benefit and their post-tax, their take-home per week. And there is still a difference for every worker up to a certain point in these cases. As just for reference, worker one there, a single worker, with this proposal option is bringing home about 8% less than they would for post-tax estimated. That's a big decrease though from the current rate, which is about 18% less. So they brought home about 10% more in comparison to their weekly post. And that's kind of similar across the board. As you increase, it's about a 10% drop. However, I should note that as you get to the higher wage workers, in this case, around 120, a worker making around 120,000 per year, which is around $2,300 per week, there is that crossover point that we've seen in previous scenarios where they could potentially bring home more from the TTD benefit than they would from their estimated post-tax. And at the very max, that would happen for this particular option. A worker making $2,736 per week would hit that maximum benefit. And looking at their estimated tax rates and how much they would take home, this would mean they could potentially be a single worker bring home $42 more from the TTD benefit than their take home. For married, this is never the case. There's never a crossover point.
Thank you for that in-depth analysis and the description of all the components. Appreciate that. Want to open it up to any questions that folks may have. And I'd just like to mention, I think Raphael did as well, that this was a proposal or a request to review this scenario presented by both labor and management stakeholders. So it was great to see that joint request come together. But opening up to any questions that there may be. Okay, hearing and seeing none. Terry, kicking it back to you. Thank you, Raphael, very much. I think I can't hear you, Terry. Is that my audio or yours?
Sorry, it's me.
Okay.
We have the NCCI summary of data, and that was placed on the website yesterday. Do you want to put that up? Todd Johnson is not able to join us today, but I think this summary was very similar to another summary that we proposed earlier in our data analysis. Here we go. So, and I can't remember which proposal it was. I think it might have, I can't remember. Sorry, I'm not even gonna guess because I would not know the right one. But I think the summary was very similar to another proposal that we had.
Yeah, it was very similar to 2A, and
2A.
the analysis between this current proposal we have labeled as 2B. And
2B.
And I believe 2B comes in at about a 3.1% impact to market or impact to the system, where 2A was about 3.2%, if I recall correctly. And so,
Okay.
you know, very similar. This one is slightly lower, which I think was an important piece we're trying to navigate as well. But yes, I think if you scroll to the second page, we'll be able to see that data if I recall. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. And then, so that's where we see the percentage. And then if we go to, I think the next page, it gives us some additional breakdowns here of where that, so we can see the annual income levels and the percent of workers that are in each of those brackets, and the impact to system that those increased payments would be. And again, that overall impact is coming in at 3.1. And for reference, I think 2A was 3.2, so slightly lower. Any questions on the NCCI piece?
And Co-Chairs Todd Johnson will be at the November 6th MLAC meeting when, Scott has his hand.
Perfect. Mr. Scott, what you got?
Not a question as much as a comment. I just wanted to say that this was super helpful, and and reiterating everything that Stacy mentioned about the stakeholder engagement and the stakeholders working together to come forth with a joint proposal. The expertise that was brought from the insurers and organizations like NCCI enabled us to really move forward, and the wonderful data and analysis from Raphael and the others at WCD. It just, again, I think was a perfect example of, we can kind of nudge in a direction one way or another, and it's really the stakeholders and their committed engagement in this that drives the work that we do. So I just wanted to flag that while we have this up as well.
Great comment. Totally agree. Any other comments from folks? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Terry, what's next?
Public comment and stakeholder feedback. I do not have any public comment that I know of.
Okay, well, we can
Does
pause
anybody
for a
have their hand
second
up?
and see. Checking online.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, looks like Kirsten's popping in. Hey, Kirsten.
Hi, Kirsten Adams from Associated General Contractors. Thank you to both the co-chairs for all of your guidance and leadership on this issue as we've gone through it. Just looking at the 2A and 2B options, I think we've come to a really good place where I think at the very beginning, I think it was Stacy, you had said, if we come to a place where neither side is really happy coming out of it, then we found our solution. And I feel like that's kind of where we've gotten on this one, where it's, not where the business side necessarily, management side necessarily want to be, not exactly where labor wanted to be, but I think we found a good middle. In between the 2A and 2B, it doesn't seem like a lot percentage wise, but I think that 0.1% when we're talking about the size of the workers' comp system and what exactly that cost implication might be, I think that 0.1% is worth it to go to the 2B, and partially any impact in terms of a downward shift would be to higher income workers, this focus has very much been on trying to ensure that lower wage workers are being made as whole as possible. So that would be my perspective and kind of the management side perspective from the stakeholder group, but I wanted to share that and to really thank both the co-chairs, and then also it's been really great working with Odalise on this issue and the other stakeholders. So wanted to acknowledge that as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Kirsten. Anyone else? Odalise, looks like Odalise popping in. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon all. Yeah, I think similar to Kristen, I think want to share thank you to everyone who has kind of helped us get to where we are now. I feel like we were on pretty opposite ends when we first started to have this conversation, even like last year, and being able to have, I think, the dialogue in the space has been super helpful. I think like for myself or our organization and Kirsten and Paloma and Maggie being able to meet and just like really being available, and it's been great being able to again work with them and be able to have great dialogue really. And she's right, and co-chair, you're correct as well. Like if we're meeting kind of in the middle in a place where like neither one of us are very content, but I think this is definitely somewhere where we can agree, and we've gotten to as close as we can. I think labor would continue to advocate for 2A. I think for obvious reasons. I remember the ombuds, I think, came to one of the meetings and said that they would like to see like as minimal change to the formula as possible, because it's, again, like explaining to workers is confusing and difficult. So I think that's why we would request that 2A is also like considered when you all have your vote and discussion. But 2B is definitely a step in the right direction, and we also don't want perfect to be the enemy of good here, and really remember why we're doing this work, and it's for workers across the state.
Thanks, Odalise. Appreciate that. Looks like Carl came on camera. Do you have a comment, Carl? Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure we didn't pass you by. Anybody else have any other things for the group? Okay, hearing none. Kicking back to you, Terry.
Okay, so next steps are that the co-chairs will put together the recommendation and letter back to MLAC, and that will be at the November 6th MLAC meeting. So that is the last step in this process. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. This has been a really long and grueling summer between the two subcommittees. This is a summer at MLAC subcommittees, and we're just thankful for everybody. It's been
I
a
agree
great project.
100%. And thank you, Terry. We appreciate your support. And Scott and I spoke earlier, and we were, and Scott, feel free to chime in, but we were very appreciative of both labor and management coming together, all the stakeholders coming together to find this resolution. We are both supportive of 2B and would like to pass that on to the MLAC committee for approval. I think the part that, speak for myself, that I appreciate the most is that that was something that came out of a work group between the stakeholders, and I think that's very meaningful. And again, appreciate that the stakeholders were willing to come together and find a solution that could work for all. So thank you again to all of you, and love that this was where our committee was able to get. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Scott, anything you want to add there?
No, just echo. I would say, you know, I am really proud of the work that the subcommittee was able to accomplish, especially given the kind of arc of where we began and how patient everybody was in the deep data dive and analyzing the issues in the question and moving forward on that. I agree. I think there's consensus around the 2B as the sort of joint labor management presentation, and was able to speak with the management stakeholder as well, and looks like we can get you know, that was sort of as mentioned, the comfortably uncomfortable or uncomfortably comfortable, however we want to phrase that, path forward where there could be you know, consensus on that as a solution that strikes that balance in sort of navigating, as I know I mentioned before, us kind of like going through the fog and having all the red flags and the, you know, beacons that we use to navigate this issue. I think that strikes the balance, and that we can move forward jointly on that. And talking with Stacy, you know, a level of comfort and appreciation for the way that addresses a lot of the concerns that management brought forth in how to move forward, I think is appropriate. So again, huge shout out. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Odalise, for working on this. Thank you to all the other stakeholders as well for your engagement and your input and perspective. I think that, you know, we could not have been in any way successful in this without the stakeholders engaging repeatedly the way that they have. And I think that speaks volumes, especially with this only being a subcommittee. So I very much appreciate that.
Wonderful. Okay, Terry, back to you.
Okay, that's all we have. Look at that, 20
Look
minutes.
at that. Everyone go enjoy your Friday. You got over an hour back of your life. This is amazing. All right. Well, again, thank you so much, and really appreciate the collaboration and all the engagement that we saw throughout this entire process. And again, very, very happy to see that we were able to come to a place where we can send a recommendation back to MLAC. This is wonderful. Thank you. And with that, happy Friday, and I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.